Starbucks bottle thing. I need some coffee. So we start wandering the aisles. It's all pitch black, and I'm using my iPhone as like a flashlight. And I said to one of the guys, like, "This is how the world ends, man. This is cool. Like, we're in the game. Like, what else should we get?" And one guy's like, "Antibiotics." You know, like, get antibiotics before food. And we're like working it out in the aisle at Safeway just the other day. So yeah, sometimes it creeps into your head. We felt we needed to do something new with role-playing and guns. The original inspiration was, imagine Burnout Crash Mode with body parts. And we talked about it, and Emil came up with the name.
The acronym is sort of an homage to the FEV VATS in Fallout 1. It's, you know, where the super mutants got created from. We were sort of looking for an homage, and that's just sort of fit the Vault-Tec assisted targeting system. Sure, I could shoot a guy in the legs and run and gun, but in VATS, you have a certain amount of action points. So it allows you to actually make a measured, precise shot on the legs, cripple him so he'll move slower, take out the arms, he'll be less accurate with the gun. The head has a higher chance to critical, so it might blow up, but it's hard to hit. So really taking all the stuff from Fallout 1 and 2 and sort of trying to bring that into a new next-gen type of game.
That was one of our goals initially, was we didn't want to just be a shooter. That the kind of stuff we do, we want to try something that attaches you to your character, that lets you have your character on the screen do something you, the player, can't do. That your character can go in and advance, blow the leg off one guy, the head off another, and the arm off another in some equilibrium style, pop, 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 that you, unless you were like Call of Duty Ninja Master, you could never do as a player. It's like we want you to feel super powerful in those moments because your character in the world is super powerful, even though you were born with an extra big left thumb or something.
Todd's fond of saying that great games are played, not made, and that's certainly true, because we knew what we wanted to do with it. We knew we wanted to have the ability to queue up shots at somebody on specific parts of their bodies and then play that back in a cinematic fashion. And that's what we knew that we wanted to do.
We had talked originally about, you know, let's not have it pause the screen. Let's have it, you know, be a sort of slow motion thing. And I was like, how many times have you been playing like a first-person game and being startled by something and just want to break and just want to be able to stop and assess the situation tactically, and pausing the game and allowing you to target the body parts allows you to do that. So I'm really happy with the way that came out.
We'll put something in with as many dials, tuning things as we can, and then we'd sit there and tune it week by week to, well, now it's more like this. And then people would say, well, how should I be using it? I don't know. Go use it and then tell us what you think. And the one thing everybody loved were the playbacks, you know, when people died in fabulous ways or it showed your character doing something really cool. So we had to separate VATS really into two entities. One was the gameplay part of it, the numbers. What is my character doing when he shoots your arm? What are the numbers? How fast do I get him back? And then there was the playback, which all went to art in terms of being a cinematic joy buzzer.
The thing that excites me most is the combat, the violence content especially. It is a fantastic amount of fun to get a shotgun and blow a mutant's head off in slow motion and watch the eyeballs go flying all over the screen.
The mandate was to push it really far over the top. We didn't want it to be realistically disturbing. We wanted it to be cartoony. I've done a lot of it. I haven't done it all. Our previous character lead, thankfully, the person who actually scoured websites and found a lot of the photo reference that we wound up having to use. Awful stuff. Don't recommend it. And people were walking by and getting very, 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 very sick and telling me that I should, you know, put a warning up. And so I did, because I thought it was funny.
I'm a big believer that if you can make, in a game like this where you're killing lots and lots of things, if you can make that repetitive action really entertaining, like that's where the rubber meets the road in a lot of these games. So this is something I know the player's going to do 10,000 times. Make that as entertaining as you can, and the rest of it is pretty much gravy. So we spent a lot of time just on that moment. How does it sound? What is the physics like? What's the camera like? And then adding lots of cameras so it doesn't get repetitive.
I think it really adds something that's really fun and entertaining to the game that we haven't really seen before.
Our game is primarily first person, so when you have guns in first person, the bar has been raised. But it's tough because we're an RPG, not a shooter. So it's a mixture of, it's not just the player skill, it's your character skill too.
The first thing we did was we took a bow and arrow from Oblivion and we made a bow and arrow gun that shot rapid fire arrows, and it didn't quite work right. So we had to build up that whole system from scratch. The hardest part has definitely been how you do gun combat within an RPG, how your stats affect your aim, affect your damage. We've been over that hundreds and hundreds of times, how much the guns spread, how much damage they do, and trying to make you feel like you're getting better as you get more powerful.
It's not like Oblivion, you level up automatically because it's an experience point based game, so that will happen organically as you play the game. You have different weapon skills too, so a small handgun is determined by the small gun skill. So if you jack that skill up, a small handgun will be pretty damn effective. It fires more quickly, you'll get more shots off in fast. It's a constant balancing act for us to find that right balance between, RPG skill and player skill, and making the guy take long enough to die, but have it feel realistic too.
The designers made a lot of decisions about what they wanted to do in terms of the weapons. We had some fantastical sort of weapons that we made that are fun, like we have a weapon that shoots junk. You just random junk you collect around the world, and you just load it up into it, and you can shoot out teddy bears and and tin cans and typewriters and that sort of thing. But in terms of how to make them work realistically, most of that was just playing the game. We have a lot of numbers, we can adjust the numbers, how fast does this weapon fire, how long does it take to reload it, what sorts of ammo does it take, the animations and all that are all done by the art department, but mostly it's feel in terms of how the weapon works, as opposed to this is exactly how this particular weapon in the real world fires. You want to make it, again, you want to make it fun to play and compelling to play.
What we definitely wanted to do with the gun stuff is not do everything that everyone else has done. So, we have some weapons that you can craft and some unique weapons, like the railway rifle that shoots railway spikes. And, so we had a lot of fun with doing that type of stuff.
Our lead artist, Esteban, that guy's from Mars, man. He can do anything. And he designed a lot of the guns, the laser rifles. You could build that thing. He knows how it works. It's that part of it that I think maybe people don't see behind the scenes when we concept the stuff, And we know what the knobs do. In the original games, there's actually Pip-Boy, who is the mascot of the device. So the device is Pip-Boy, and there's also a little Pip-Boy guy.
It's like your link to survival. It's this device you have that's helping you manage your life. It feels like you leave that vault, and the only thing you take with you is this piece of technology strapped to your wrist that becomes your sort of lifeline.
What's really fun is when you just have like your stuff in the Pip-Boy, or you're looking at a stat, and it can be very dry if you just lay them out on paper. This is what strength does, this is what intelligence does, and here's this perk called Animal Friend, and it will make animals not attack you. But when you pull it up in the game, that's your Pip-Boy flips up, it's this retro device, and it says Animal Friend, and it has this stupid picture of Vault Boy with like this giant rabbit, and there's like, it's funny. And so it makes the act of looking at your character's stats another thing the player does all the time. They kill things all the time, and they look at their stats all the time. So you make both those things entertaining. We spent forever on the Pip-Boy.
Compared to the previous projects that I've done here, which was the Elder Scrolls series, where everything is medieval fantasy and magic and swords and sorcery and things like that. Fallout 3, everything is rusty and metal and broken. So from a sound perspective, it's a lot more fun because there's a lot of Foley work that I can do that I couldn't do before, including machinery. A lot of the iconic sound that I think of is going to come from a lot of the voices, but also a lot of the environmental sounds, like the sound of the vault being in the wasteland, in the Enclave military base, and places like that where I got to really put together something different. The vault is very, very sterile. It's a lot of AC noise. It's the sound of being in an office like this, maybe. Everything's very clean and controlled and sterile. A lot of the voice, I think, in particular the robots. And that has more to do with the writers than anybody else, because they put a lot of work into making each robot very unique. There's the clearly military guy, but it's got a humor side to it. And we've got the Mr. Handy robot, who is British butler inspired, but not so much C-3PO as he is Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Godfrey, your personal robotic butler.
And so that kind of stuff, I think, in particular, is what's going to stand out to people and what they're going to remember.
Good work. That's one less routouts to deal with. Let's get a picture together. Capture the moment.
Most of the casting was actually done here, just right in over here in our little booth. There was a little bit done in LA as some of the bigger names like Liam Neeson.
There you go. My goodness, just a year old and already walking like a pro.
On video games, you have to rely a lot on your voice if you're not going to be seen, you know, so... and over the years I've done quite a lot of, maybe not video work, but I've done a lot of audio work, and in my early days a lot of radio plays with the BBC in London and Ireland, so there's a shift of focus you do have to make, you know, and trying to convey something through your voice and through the rhythm of the words that you wouldn't have to worry about so much if the camera was on you, you know.
Come on over here, son. Come on. Walk to Daddy. There you go. My goodness, just a year old and already walking like a pro.
You're playing a character, you know, an authoritative character, obviously President Eden, and it's self-explanatory.
Old minds are like old horses. You must exercise them if you wish to keep them in working order.
The government should not be guided by temporary excitement, but by sober second thought.
You know, I love doing video games and stuff like that, so because I've got kids, so of course they always love that. I guess I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it.
Don't you, my darling America, deserve that? Don't you deserve a future free of war and fear and terrible uncertainty? Of course you do.
Malcolm McDowell in particular has done lots of VO work in video games before. He just kind of jumped in, we did a little bit of background on the character, and then he just started having fun with it. And it was great because it seemed like he was relaxed and having fun, and he knew he wanted to ad-lib some stuff or go a little crazy with some of the lines. It's good that way because it almost seems to me that video game acting is kind of like makeup for a stage performance. You kind of have to exaggerate things a little bit. When they go a little bit more over the top sometimes, it seems like what you and I would consider normal in a film. Whereas when you hear it just by itself, you're like, man, I don't know, that's gonna stand out like a sore thumb. But in the context of the game, it's great. So I felt like that's what Malcolm McDowell brought to the project as well.
You're simply existing, America. Postponing death for a day or two. Well, I'm gonna tell you, right here, right now, those days are at an end. The Enclave is back, America. We've brought clean water with us.
We have everything from a BB gun to the plasma rifle. Not to forget the Fat Man, the miniature nuclear bomb launcher. So when you fire it, it's this blast of pressurized air and rattly metal, and it's got a stupid dinner bell ring that I put on it when it's ready to fire the next round. Energy weapons were much, much harder. Those were the hardest of the bunch. There's not a lot out there in terms of stock recordings to start from or any starting point. A lot of the stock recording stuff sounds really bad. It's easy to make something sound silly. It's really hard to make it sound like this is a really powerful weapon and I'm doing a lot of damage with it, and not just have it be pew, 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 you know, or something like that. Okay, well, I'll actually start with the stock, with the weapon recordings, in fact. But I'll take the low end of this one. This one has a real heavy, boom, low end slap. you know, that you're gonna hopefully feel in your chest every time you shoot it. And then the high end of this one, and then a little bit more of it is Foleyed. So I'll show you a few of the items I've got here. This is the booth where we normally record all the voice actors. So it's usually just one voice actor in the chair, script in front of them, and then the mic, and then me in the other room directing. But I also use this room for a lot of the in-house Foley recording that I do. And a lot of it is not necessarily something that I know right away what I want to record for the game. Like there's a specific robot or a specific gun or any kind of thing like that. Usually it's something at the beginning of the project, and I'll come in, find a bunch of props, whatever I think I can find from construction sites around the office, stuff like that, things off the loading dock, and just record, making every little sound. I bang on things, I bend it, and file it all away in our sound effects library for later. And then as the game progresses, as I need to find something to use that sound in, then it's on hand, and then hopefully I've got it organized and named in such a way that I can find it when I need it. So one thing I found during this project was I got one of these 5-gallon water jugs from one of the nice folks up in QA, and I just found if I kind of inserted the neck of the bottle without hitting the microphone, and you get this massive, kind of real deep chest bass sound if you just tap it very, very lightly on the bottom. So I've got a few of some of the bullet shells that you're going to hear on the game. This is a 30-06, so you might hear some of these when the sniper rifle, whereas we used some of the smaller caliber pistol ammunition, like a 9mm, which was actually used on the 10mm, but don't tell anybody that. Classic Fallout sound, bottle caps. So every time you get bottle caps off of somebody, or give them bottle caps, or just pick them off a dead body, you're going to be hearing these. And these are just a different assortment of beers that I drank and saved up. And so it's basically just me passing them from one hand to the other, and that's about it. This is an ordinary wrapper from like a snack pack kind of cereal, and Captain Crunch or Cheerios or what have you, and this is the sound of the giant ants in the wasteland. A lot of the sound they make when their feelers are out or when they're moving around, looking for something, I don't know, kind of squeaky, a little plasticky sounding, and I'm basically just taking this thing and then scrunching it all together, and it makes all these little squeaks and rips and tears and stuff like that. So it's a lot of that mixed with other pieces of plastic and clear wrap and liquids and things like that for the ants. For some of the weapons, a lot of them are me just banging on HVAC ductwork. Anything where I can get a big metal ka-chunk, you know, when it fires. A little bit of that is in the double-barreled shotgun.
You're listening to Enclave Radio. I'm John Henry Eden, president of the Enclave, president of America.
That was something I had to figure out very early on, was the sound of anyone being broadcast over the radio. So sound-wise, there's that, because the rest of the sound, it takes place in the modern day of Fallout 3, which I can then go back to making it sound as post-apocalyptic and wrecked as I wanted it to sound.